Today on Politicat, we bring you closer to the 2022 midterm elections in November and how abortion rights may define their results. Good evening and welcome to this week's Politicat panel, A Road to the Midterms, where we'll discuss key issues in the upcoming elections. I'm Melina Chalkia. Earlier this summer, the U.S. Supreme Court voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, the landmark case that initially granted abortion as a constitutional right across states. Now, the ruling sparked protests nationwide as abortion rights supporters voiced their disapproval of the ruling. With midterm elections just weeks away, abortion rights have become a prime topic of conversation among voters. A Pew Research study showed that more than half of registered voters say the issue of abortion will be very important in their midterm vote. With us today, we have Politicat's Emma Sullivan, Caitlin Benner-Thomas, and Lucy Jaffe, who have followed the topic of abortion rights for the midterms. Thank you all for being here. So, Emma, we'll start with you. We saw quite the turmoil with the Supreme Court's decision on abortion rights. How do you think this will influence how people vote? Is it likely to affect voter registrations in any way?
It's hard to say, Melina. Many states have reported a surge in voter registration, particularly among women, following the Supreme Court's Dobbs versus Jackson ruling. In Kansas, more than 70% of newly registered voters in the week following the decision were women. This came on the heels of Kansas voters rejecting a ballot initiative that would have removed abortion rights protections from the state's constitution. While inflation continues to remain the top issue among registered voters, abortion will certainly be a central issue in the midterm elections and will likely motivate voters to turn out to vote. In fact, a vast majority of Democrats, 83%, said they are more likely to vote in the midterm elections after the Supreme Court ruling, and 53% of independent voters said the same thing. We'll have to wait to see what happens.
And so, to that point, to bring us closer to home, current laws in Illinois uphold abortion rights, of course. The two main candidates for Illinois governor this November are incumbent Governor J.B. Pritzker and State Senator Darren Bailey. Now, Governor Pritzker has expanded abortion rights during his time in office. We saw him signing the Reproductive Health Care Act in 2019, which established Illinoisans' rights to abortion care, and repealing the Parental Notifications Act in 2021, which allowed minors to get an abortion without parental consent. Now, how do you think this abortion rights will be dealt with by both candidates? What should we expect to see moving forward?
Governor Pritzker and State Senator Darren Bailey have taken starkly different stances on abortion. After the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, Pritzker called the decision abhorrent and promised that Illinois would, quote, remain a safe haven, unquote, for reproductive rights. His opponent Bailey, on the other hand, has repeatedly said that he would support a total abortion ban without exceptions for rape or incest in Illinois. However, he recognizes that a bill repealing the abortion protections is not likely to make it to his desk.
Thanks, Emma. So public opinion is, of course, very crucial in this. Lucy, based on early polling, what results are Illinois voters hoping to see in the governor's race, especially in relation to abortion rights?
Polling shows a strong likelihood that incumbent J.B. Pritzker will be reelected. 538, a poll analysis website, showed his 15% lead in the race. Darren Bailey was endorsed by former President Donald Trump and has proved to be popular among far-right voters, which may be incompatible with the state's Democratic majority in Trump's previous two elections. Pritzker invested significant resources to disadvantage moderate Republican candidate Richard Irwin during the Republican primaries earlier this year, as his presence would make the governor's re-election race much more competitive. Pritzker is an outspoken advocate of abortion rights, with Bailey taking the opposite approach. Since the majority of Illinois residents support abortion rights and function currently with statewide access to abortion, Pritzker's pro-choice status will only improve his likelihood of re-election.
And what about nationwide? What is the public opinion on abortion on this?
According to a poll that was conducted following the overturn of Roe v. Wade, a majority of Americans, around 61%, believe that abortion would be illegal in all or most cases. While more than half of Americans and an increase in Democratic voters consider abortion rights to be an important topic for the midterm elections, there has been no change in Republican opinions. Both parties recognize the nuance of abortion rights, which is why a majority of voters do not support full legality or full illegality and prefer more circumstantial policies. The results of swing state elections may be dependent upon a candidate's stance on the subject. The future of abortion will also rely on the state's other current legislative actors.
Thanks, Lucy. So moving away from Illinois, right now we're seeing several states in a hostile condition, meaning they're showing a desire to prohibit abortion completely. In these states, of course, competitive races in the midterms could tip the balance in support of or against abortion rights. So, Caitlin, I wanted to ask you, what can we expect from some of these states, especially the ones neighboring Illinois?
In some of the states like Illinois, like South Dakota, Missouri, and Wisconsin, abortions are completely banned. In others like Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and North Dakota, the bans are being blocked by the courts due to facing legal challenges. In Ohio, for instance, there's currently a lawsuit challenging the state's heartbeat ban, which bans abortions at around 6 weeks. So in these states where the bans are blocked, residents still have access to abortions until the court is able to come to a decision stating otherwise. And many of these states, it's hard to tell which party will take office due to competing candidates, the numbers running so closely. Recent polls have shown a tight Ohio Senate race with Democrat Tim Ryan leading by only 3% against Republican J.D. Vance.
So you mentioned the Midwest states, right? And of course, that will probably make Illinois an outlier in the Midwest with its continued access to abortion. Do you think this will affect the state of Illinois and potentially Chicago in any way in regards to abortion care?
Yeah, abortion clinics in Illinois have already seen an influx of out-of-state patients because most of its neighboring states, like we discussed, are showing hostility towards abortion care. Planned Parenthood of Illinois predicted that anywhere from 20,000 to 30,000 out-of-state patients could be traveling here each year to receive the procedure. Many hospitals and clinics have expressed concerns over whether they will be able to have enough staff to accommodate these patients coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's of course a very legitimate fear, especially with a lot of these states banning abortion completely. But it turns out there is still some hope on the national level for these hospitals and clinics. The recent Women's Health Protection Act of 2022 proposes greater nationwide access to abortion. Now, Lucy, you follow this issue closely. Could you elaborate on what the bill entails and how the midterms could potentially affect it?
Of course. The Women's Health Protection Act has been introduced and voted on by Congress before, but the 2022 bill prevents state governments from withholding abortion access before around 23 weeks of age, or in instances where a patient's health is at risk. The bill provides numerous other protections for women and abortion providers and calls upon the Department of Justice to pursue any violations of the bill. Even with the overturn of Roe v. Wade, if the WHPA becomes federal law, varieties of abortion access nationwide would be restored. The bill is already passed in the House of Representatives, but is stalled from receiving a Senate vote. Flipping the Senate blue could end the delay. Competitive senatorial races in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and more could result in more Democratic candidates and thus more support for the bill.
Thanks, Lucy. And Emma, do you think the Illinois midterm elections, and specifically the senator's race, could affect the bill?
Yes. There were 35 Senate seats up for re-election in 2022. 14 that are currently held by Democrats and 21 that are currently held by Republicans. In Illinois, Democratic incumbent Senator Tammy Duckworth is running for re-election against Republican Kathy Sylvie. To successfully pass the Women's Reproductive Act of 2022, the Democrats will need to gain at least a two-thirds majority in the Senate. Well, that's out of the question. Democrats are hoping to at least maintain control of the Senate. The chamber is currently split 50-50, with Vice President Harris having the tie-breaking vote. Democrats are counting on Duckworth's Senate seat, among others, to retain their Senate majority.
Well, thank you all very much. It's clear that the elections will play a very important role in the future of abortion access. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Stay tuned for Politicat's next panel on immigration policy, and of course, our election show on November 8th. From Politicat, I'm Melina Chalkia. Have a great night.